Episode 234 of the TV Dudes, recorded May 2nd, 2019. Curtain Call. Hey guys.
Hey.
It's been a while since this particular arrangement has been in the studio.
Oh, but it is always good to get these three guys in the same room together.
So Grant is not here this week. It is just us. I'm Randy.
I'm Les.
And I'm Kyle.
And we are the TV Dudes. And this week, you might have noticed we did not drop an episode on Monday as we have been doing. That is because we did not get a chance. Scheduling didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But Kyle and I...
Couldn't get the brightness turned up on my screen.
I thought we did drop an episode. It was just too dark to hear.
It was so dark, you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. If you had left motion smoothing on.
If only.
No one should leave motion smoothing on. No one should do that. But yeah, so we're going to talk Game of Thrones. We're going to close out with that. We're going to give a big spoiler warning so you guys don't get spoiled. Before that, though, we're going to talk about a couple finales. We're going to talk about You're the Worst. So we're talking about the series as a whole and its finale that wrapped over on FX, and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which had its series finale over on CW. And then we're going to talk about another show involving curtain calls. That's Fosse Verdon over at FX, which is about Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon.
I was about to ask. I don't see how. Where does curtain call fit in? But now
So
it's
you
coming
get it.
together.
You get it. And Game of Thrones was a curtain call for a few characters.
Oh, that's true.
So yeah, we are the TV Dudes, and we're just going to dive right into this thing.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So let's start off. Let's start off with You're the Worst. And I want to say, Kyle, have you watched any of You're the Worst?
No, this is one that it's kind of flown by, and I've just never caught it.
So this is routinely on Randy and I's top of the year list.
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
think there was
I see it all the
year
time.
where it didn't clear up, and it was because the season got brutal and hard to watch.
The Depression season.
And it never stopped being exceptional television. It just honestly got real for a minute.
This is going to be one of those things that when you guys are totally over it, like I'm going to find it on a binge.
Yep.
And I'm going to be like, talk to this with me.
Yes.
And you're going to be like, I'm just...
See also Game of Thrones later for me.
But
I'm going to discover this and be obnoxious about it.
But I will always talk about You're the Worst. I love this show.
Nice.
It is exquisite comedy writing. Like, honestly, so many sitcoms try to go for realism, and they just hit this weird melancholy that doesn't work for me as funny, and it just bums me out. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of sitcoms that don't thread this needle for me, and there's something about You're the Worst where this cast, this writing, the pacing, the goofy side jokes, it all really gels well. And this particular series finale is, I think Randy will agree, it's one of the best stuck landings I've ever seen a show pull off.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the other things this show does really well is it's people terrible people who you want to root for. Like, every one of our protagonists have at some point been like, oh, that's bad. And yet you always wind up rooting for them. A sort of, will they, won't they, sort of a hateful relationship where they're like, you're not sure they should be together.
It's like a super romantic Always Sunny. Like,
yeah.
Like, these people suck.
Yeah.
But they suck at exactly the same frequency. They need each other.
Yeah.
No, you should be together.
Yeah, it is weird to watch. It's weird to have a romance where you're like, I'm not sure they should be together, but maybe they totally should. Like, it really threads that needle really well, like you said. That's one of the things it does.
There's an episode in like the third season where they open from like across the street neighbor's perspective.
Yeah.
And it drives it home of like, oh God, the protagonists of the show are just a dumpster fire of neighbors. Like, they are the worst neighbors. Like, y'all are definitely the John Ralphio Sappers.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple questions real quick. How many seasons has this been?
5 seasons.
So 5 seasons you've kept up. Behind the scenes, do you guys know what inspired them to create this show?
I don't actually, and I briefly talked to everyone in the cast and the creator at a red carpet thing.
Stephen Falk.
Yeah, Stephen Falk.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I don't think that question was asked, and I don't remember. Like, I'm sure he's talked about it.
It's something I'm kind of curious about because, the initial premise of the show Especially being in like a relationship at the time on an upswing.
Yeah.
It sounded like, I don't want that to put me in the downer mood.
Right.
And then I just never got back to it.
And that's what I was. That's what honestly I didn't make it with Casual. There's been a lot of shows that like, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, and I wasn't in a relationship when I started that one.
And this, there's something just really. They are so. It's like It's Always Sunny. Like the situations are so. They're such atrocious people sometimes.
Yeah.
That there's just this gleeful like, oh, y'all can't be real. I'm so glad this happened.
Is it like a cartoon, like Always Sunny? Though
It's not really. No,
it doesn't crank it
that
that
sounds
far.
terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird sex scenes.
Yeah, this showed us some of the most vivid sex scenes you've ever seen. Like they are not ashamed to go there with sex.
Oh man, the whole. Her job as managing what at the very start of it kind of seems like a Donald Glover pastiche.
Yeah.
Her main client, she manages like a musician and his group.
Yep.
What they kind of evolve, like they stick around through the whole show. And,
well, 3 of them do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's they changed one of them. They recast him in the show. Like they make a point of like, no. Third guy in our crew is now a different dude under the same nickname.
Yeah.
Like is that's not Honey Nuts though? And like, oh yeah, no, this is Honey Nuts too. We spent years working on that character.
Yeah.
We can't just let that go out of the brand. Like,
yeah.
So the finale does like a time jump and some other finale-ish things, but it's still it has heart. It like they don't cop out. These are terrible people who. You want them to have a happy ending, but I don't know that they really deserve it.
Yeah. Well, they spent a lot of time. They pulled the Breaking Bad season 2 thing here, where they spend flash forwards or flashbacks, or you're not sure what's going on this entire final season, that seemed to imply that Gretchen and Jimmy, the 2 main characters, had not gotten married, but in fact had broken up, because in the current timeline they're showing them planning their wedding, and. So there's this whole thing leading up to, well, is this going to be the tragic ending where they grow apart? And in fact, it's a whole other thing that we don't find out about till later in the series.
And then every once in a while, they'll be like, while they're planning because it's the wedding season, every once in a while, there's just this random shot of like one of them standing in an empty apartment while movers take their shit. And it's very obviously like not because they're moving together to a better place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they'll go to commercial and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But they really, really followed all the characters through, like especially Edgar. Edgar in particular just gets a great send off, and seeing him,
the main character's abused roommate, who was a total punching bag joke in season 1. The evolution of that character from background to foreground is astonishing, and is one of the things to watch the show for.
His whole thing where he's become a writer.
Yeah,
and the bachelorette party episode with Paul F. Tompkins.
Oh my God.
That was an amazing episode.
Paul F. Tompkins plays himself
as this sort of maniacal sketch show guy who's like the nightmare boss.
He works, and they all work for Doug Benson, who runs this literal comedy empire.
Yeah.
Where, like, he's constantly flying to China and flying to Japan to make deals. Like, they write shows for the Waze app, but it's fine. They only show at stoplights.
Yeah,
it's great, and these are absurd little bitty background things that go a long way to balance. Like, it gives them the room to play with brutal shit in the foreground.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, I think they did a great job of delivering on the promise of this relationship that they were going to be together, they were going to work out in a way that I don't think I've seen it done before. They're basically just like say, yeah, we're not going to get married, but we're gonna be together. We're gonna choose each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the notion of them having kids in a flash forward, I was like, I would never have pictured that. And you're like, oh, you can see this, like. She and Jimmy are great parents for that kid. Yeah. Like, you can totally see it. And it's an evolution that you wouldn't have believed, but they managed to make us buy it.
Yeah, they both kind of recognize that they have deep enough trigger bullshit that if either one of them actually goes through with this wedding, they will immediately blow it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can just see both of them, like, starting to panic of like, no, both of you have way too much damage.
Yeah, deer in the headlights panic. Yeah.
And, like, you are going – and they both kind of like, oh – cool. If we just don't label it that, our personal defenses will back the fuck off.
You know what else I really liked? I liked all the endings for like Lindsay and Paul. Like Lindsay and Paul getting together. I never thought I'd want that.
No.
She stabbed him. He turned into an MRA.
My God. Well, he backed into her knife, Randy.
That is not what happened.
I love this show. I can't believe I'm actually going to miss like Gretchen like giving him handies under a blanket while other people are like, "Should I fucking leave?" Yes, you probably should.
And Vernon and
oh my god,
the mobile ambulance thing. Like, there's things that like those characters were train wrecks, and yet I wanted to see him happy. I was glad.
The whole thing with their mom,
and
Vernon. Oh god,
yeah. This was a fantastic finale. Like it is definitely up there with like the height of comedy finales. Like I don't think anybody's stuck the landing this well since you mentioned 30 Rock off mic. I would say Cheers, Parks and Rec, like the ones that bring a little heart along with the comedy.
Well, 30 Rock also gave us a Night Court ending.
That's true.
Thanks to
Twofer.
Kenneth. Yeah.
But yeah, You're the Worst is fantastic. It starts great, it ends great. It's pretty great all the way through, and I would highly recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
And now it's prime for binging if you, like me, have never seen it.
Indeed. So the other one, should we move over to?
Yeah, let's move on to Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yeah, so the other one that also stuck the landing but was not as personal to me was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend,
yeah.
I felt. Like, there's nothing wrong with that finale, and that show is just honestly. Kyle, have you watched much Crazy Ex?
Again, this is another one. I always see it on your lists. I've never seen a single episode of this.
This
I
thing
saw the
is a trick
promo,
of writing.
which was like a musical thing, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, it would, if you are a musical theater nerd, it's a bunch of musical theater references. Like, there's a lot. I mean, like, they are pulling a lot of weird, deep cuts, apparently, from a lot of musical theater history that flies right past me. Mm-hmm. It is separately the most astonishingly delicate storyline about mental health I think I've ever seen directly gone at on television. So that they backed a sitcom into a season where they kind of had to deal with suicide, like a character's attempted suicide.
Oh, so she's literally crazy.
Oh, yeah.
She's actually crazy.
Oh, I thought it was just a cute name.
No, and after like a season, you can't really keep playing it for laughs.
Yeah.
And they stop. Only it's still a sitcom, so like they're still rolling with it. But
but yeah, and just like in You're the Worst, it becomes an ensemble. Everybody grows. Valencia, who starts out as sort of her foil, becomes one of the most beloved characters.
Yeah, and has her own arc where like she learns a bunch about herself and ends up in like. So they use this finale to quite literally have the main character just go through and like comment on everybody's growth and thank them all.
Yeah, this wouldn't work so much if it wasn't Rachel Bloom. Who's what is her character name? Rachel?
No, Rebecca.
Rebecca, thank you. Rebecca is like a huge musical theater nerd and all this stuff. So basically, she does this thing where she gets up and does an open mic, and it's basically a one woman show that is self-indulgent and all talking about her friends, and it's such a meta thing, but it works because that's 100% what that character would do.
And they also do a really fun we were talking about this off mic earlier. The show opens with her like having a dream. I fucking hate being told about people's dreams. I don't like dream episodes. I don't know, it rubs me it is a total pet peeve of mine.
What about Dan Aykroyd in Ghostbusters, where his belt's
That's about it. That's like that is the extent of That's also the extent. That's also the extent of nudity I ever want from Aykroyd. But so it kind of dipped for me, like, oh god, I'm doing a dream. But then it turns into this crazy meta fourth wall break thing where a character finally in the series finale cold asks Rebecca, "You just did that thing where you just zone out for a while, like 7 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you do then?" And she doesn't want to admit it, and you realize that, no other character has known what has happened every single song for this entire show.
Yeah.
She just zones out for a minute. It's like iZombie, like, we're just going to wait for her to have
a flash.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she's back. Cool. What'd you see?
Yeah.
And so her friend's like, you see, they do a really nice, like, taking her into the abstract theater space. And
I thought that was really well done, yeah.
I still love Rebecca's like, oh, thank God, an abstract theater space. I can think. It's just like gray one-act looking shit. But I love that when they explain to her friend, like, I hear songs in my head. That's the way I'm processing things. And her friend is like, write those down.
Yeah.
Like, I can? Yeah. Like, yes, that's where songs come from.
Yeah.
That song you hear in your head, write it down, and that's where songs come from. And so, yeah, her discovering that about herself, that like this thing she thought made her weird and broken and she should hide, like I'm crazy because this is how I process shit, is what she needs to share.
Yeah.
Is just a beautiful final thesis of this show. I mean, like, it's a great culmination of the lessons across.
Also,
without copping out to her dating anybody or finding her love in someone else.
I think that's one of the things, is that this show started with a sort of a notion of a true love kind of thing. She had this true love from camp that she met, and she like flew across the country to be with him, and then it quickly turned out, of course, that was insane, and that she was like she was basically running away from things, and she met several other people through the course of the series, and so this final season is sort of an extended will they won't they with her 3 potential beaux, one of whom they had to recast. And which they played for laughs, and I thought was really great. I think they cast Skylar Astin from Pitch Perfect movies, and he's great here.
Yeah, they do a whole thing of like people appearing differently for you at different times in your life.
But what I liked is that they patched her up with each one of those guys throughout the course of the final season, and they showed why it wouldn't work. And there was no point at which I thought Rebecca was going to choose one of the 3 guys.
No.
Like they sort of lean into maybe it's Greg. Like maybe Greg is the guy she winds up choosing when she's kind of gotten her stuff together, but that's not she chooses her.
Yeah, it made more and more sense that the central mistake she was making from the start of the show, the lesson she's trying to learn to stop doing is if I had just chosen this guy early on, everything would be fine.
Yeah.
And then that didn't work. Well then it's just because it's not Josh Chan. It's just the wrong guy. Well,
right.
if I choose Greg, then that'll make it right. Oh, if I choose Nathaniel, that'll make it. And all of these are the same mistake over and over and over. And the thing she needs to learn to the show is to stop looking outward for shit that's inside.
Nice.
And it's very sweet.
Well, and then when you choose the guy, then it's I got to have a kid now, and I got to get my kid into school, and I got to use all my Full House money to get my kid into the school.
It's all just tipped forward, like you're constantly stumbling.
Who's her rival that they went to Vegas for this season? Do you remember the name?
Oh, I can't remember her name.
She has this rival who's always been her. She's her better at law school, and their moms have this competition going on, and they tied that up really well. They had this thing where she basically rescues her from doing the same thing that Rebecca did in the first season.
Yes. Yeah, she's like, you're my hero, and she basically explains everything that Rebecca did, like the crazy plan from season 1, and that's what I'm doing. You can't stop me. You did it.
And she's
you can't call me crazy, because by calling me crazy, you're just calling me in love.
Which is it goes back to her
whole defense in season 1.
Yeah. And the theme song of season 2, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Trent's theme song.
I mean, this show had, if only for the musical numbers, I would recommend this show. But I also think they did a great job of the emotional journey, and all the characters really got a great sort of send-off.
Yeah. They really do deal with her attempted suicide and her mom and all of it really fucking well. I'm stunned at how well and You're the Worst is a sitcom, but it gets dark. This is a sitcom that breaks into song 3 times per episode.
Yeah.
It is light. It is big, bright colors. West Covina is a bright, goofy California town. And yet its through line is crazy heavy.
Yeah.
Also, I love that Joe never comes around on her.
No. Yeah. He's like, I don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I will never feel safe until both of you are married. Or until one of you is married.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few Les and Randy primetime shows that are ending. There's You're the Worst, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and isn't Catastrophe another one of yours?
Catastrophe ended, although I wasn't super into the last. I only liked the first season, it turns out.
Well, what I'm wondering is, because these shows have kind of tied up these different creative teams, whether it's the actors or the people creating the shows, do you think we're going to see some awesome stuff come from these?
I don't think so. I'd like to see some. See what writers' rooms gain these folks and see what happens next. I'm certainly curious to see what Stephen Falk does next.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know what Rachel Bloom will do, because this was very much up her alley. I don't know where she goes from here.
Think she's going to be on Westworld next season? Do one of those? Is the show something where people are big fans of it, we're going to see them in just crazy shit?
I don't think so. I can't see her doing drama.
I don't know, but Aileen Brush McKenna was the other creator of the show. She wrote Devil Wears Prada. I can't imagine that they won't find some project to work on together. Or
that makes sense.
I want to see what all of them will do.
Maybe it's movies time.
I do not want the Crazy X cast to fade back off my TV.
No, me neither.
They pulled most of these people off stage. Like they pulled most of these people off Broadway.
Yeah.
And so like that Donna Lynn Campbell's been in movie. I mean, I can't remember who it is that plays Heather. Vella. I'm going to get her name wrong. But the actress that plays Heather's great, but she's, I believe, also from.
And I've seen her in something else already. Like she was already in something else.
Yeah, I hope all these people continue to stay on my TV because they're all really funny.
Well, and one of the leads,
White Josh has already been in one of the Into the Darks.
He was the first Into the Dark. One of the leads of You're the Worst has a pretty heavy part in Fosse Verdon, which is the next show we're talking about. So there are 4 episodes out so far, I believe, as we record this. I have seen all 4. You all have just seen the first one.
I've just seen the first one.
Correct.
And what do you guys know about Bob Fosse?
I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what his hairline looked at different points in his life.
I feel like he is. I know he's not actually personally responsible for Jazz Hands, but like crazy dance style. Like I remember having UT has you take like a history of Western theater and a history of like the world's longest survey courses, and in the crazy blip from like Egypt to modern times. When we touched on musical theater, they mentioned Bob Fosse.
Yeah.
Like that's how big this dude is in terms of choreography and what he meant to dance.
They reference. I took dance in college, and I took some dance history stories.
I felt that coming off you.
And of course,
I feel like I'm getting a different side.
And there were a couple notable choreographers. Twyla Tharp was one of them, who's big in inventing modern dance. And there was another one, and I can't believe I've forgotten.
Merce Cunningham?
I've forgotten her name. No, but they mentioned. I think Verdon mentions having come off working with her.
Okay.
And so I felt like maybe this was kind of a bridge into a new Fosse must have been sort of a new wave of choreography.
Well, I love Paul in the first episode. Paul Reiser's character giving him hell about like you're all flash, man. You're all style.
Yeah. I love Paul Reiser here.
Paul
Reiser's great here, right?
Who he was, honestly.
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a minute to go, that's Paul Reiser.
Paul Reiser is this sort of aging Hollywood mogul type dude. Is great. Evan Handler also has a great role here.
I love Evan Handler.
Yeah. And then the woman who plays Gwen.
Or Michelle Williams.
She disappears into the role.
Yes. Which she is, that actress is fabulous in everything. I don't think I've ever seen her be bad in anything.
Yeah.
She is the standout in role after role. And I feel like everybody, me and Claire, like I feel like we all act surprised each time. Like, oh yeah, you may be the best actress of your generation.
Yeah.
I forgot.
And Sam Rockwell plays Fosse.
I adore.
And Sam Rockwell has made a career of playing sort of sleazy, likable dudes.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely what Fosse is.
Who dance at random moments.
Who dance at random moments. Yeah, this is the role he was born to play.
Honestly, yeah. With a great comb over.
Oh, yeah.
You get this sense like this person does not deserve kindness, but anytime somebody shows them kindness, you're like, yes, thank you, thank you.
Those flashbacks to him as a kid, when the guy's like, I could replace you 100 times over, never forget that.
Yeah.
You're worthless.
Yeah.
Now smile. Like, I mean, it's some Joe Jackson, like, oh, this is why you're like this.
Yeah.
Like, none of these dancers understand that you are twice as nice and forgiving as anyone who
you ever worked with.
Yeah. That, like, this is the cushy.
So, what have you guys seen Cabaret in Chicago and some of that stuff?
I had not seen Chicago until the movie came out.
Oh, okay. I'd never seen All That Jazz, which is Fosse's life story done as a musical. But I love Chicago. And I have not seen all of Cabaret.
I loved Cabaret as a kid. Like that was a wild. Like I think our community theater did it, and so I'd seen it there as a kid. Like we all went and saw the performance of it, and then I found out like wait, there's like a movie version. Like what's the legit version of this? So
I don't know. Like I like the way they do this, where they're jumping around in time. And they will show you a thing. And I don't know how far you guys get into this. There was a point where they're like 1973. Bob has 1 Emmy and 2 Oscars or something like that, and they're starting to show sort of where he is, and then they'll jump into a story and they're showing like where he is as his fame has risen and his ego's gotten a little bigger, and as a result he's become a little meaner or a little more self-destructive. And I like that they sort of jump around, like Les says, they show him as a kid, and we see him, what he put up with, and they do the same thing with Gwen. I think this is later in the series, but they show how he met Gwen, how he was married, and he and Gwen had an affair. And of course, that's what happens throughout his life. He's constantly having affairs with other people and falling in love with somebody else and destroying the person he's with and that kind of thing. And that Gwen Verdon had sort of even when they'd fallen out, the two of them had a partnership, and she brought something to him that people didn't necessarily know she was responsible for.
Yeah, I felt like it was just really, really typical of history in all facets. That I knew who Bob Fosse was because he's one of like the 4 names that got mentioned in that course for 20th Century Dance. And I had never heard of Gwen until this show.
I hadn't either. And that's what's interesting.
I was not a musical theater nerd in the way that I was a music nerd. I wasn't reading liner notes I wasn't reading all the playbills.
Right, same.
The way I was reading liner notes of albums.
Yeah, I did a ton of theater in high school. And like I say, I studied dance in college, but none of it, I didn't study Bob Fosse. Like we were studying older stuff than that. And so I never knew any of this stuff.
But it's really telling that in like half his meetings early on, people are like, well, is it a package deal? Do we get Gwen too? Because you and Gwen together, that's newsworthy, man.
Yeah.
If it's just you,
well, and that's what's interesting is that the arc that you'll start to see is that he outshines Gwen. He gets his, Cabaret is his moment, and her contributions get lost. And then all of a sudden it's Bob Fosse everywhere, and he still needs her, but nobody thinks that he needs her.
Yeah.
So she's basically helping out behind the scenes and getting no credit.
Yeah.
And that goes on, like watching her arc as she's like trying to get her life. Like she was at the same peak with him, and then he hit another level, and because she helped him, she didn't get to hit her own level.
Yeah.
And so she's basically always giving the shadows, and he has no interest in helping her climb up, but he always still wants to call her for help. And it's really interesting and really scummy. Like you see just how terrible he is to her. And it also, like, he's got serious issues. I don't want to get too into it, but the last episode that I saw, there's an extended musical hallucination sequence where they basically, all the people that he thinks he's seeing do this musical number. They're trying to convince him to kill himself to go out on a high note. And it's basically he's fighting his own suicidal impulses, but it's done as a musical number straight out of Pippin.
Wow.
And it's fantastic.
Well, I think one of the huge strengths of this show for me is, with standard biopics, I mean, there's always if you want to know what's going to happen next, you look on Wikipedia.
Right.
Yeah.
When they mix it up and they shift that timeline around, like it really kind of giving you the facts in like this new way, it kind of creates a new story.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that at the beginning of the first episode, but definitely by the end when you get kind of that first gut punch of their relationship, that was the big hook for me that made me interested in like learning more about this. Because like you guys, I think I probably have the least amount of exposure to any of this. Like I haven't taken any dance classes in college or, I don't know what cabaret is. I thought it was like a type of alcohol or so. No, I was attracted to the cool logo type that they have for the Fosse Verdon.
Yep.
And obviously I'm a huge Sam Rockwell fan. But that whole device of like telling the story in different parts, I imagine they're shooting this thing behind the scenes more like a film. And they're editing it like a TV show. And it's really great to have all this big talent and, kind of these bigger episodes. Like that bit where they were they essentially were recreating the show like on the spot, and then they show the musical number, and you can see them like kind of in the crowd directing it.
Yeah,
I was not expecting it to look that good. Like a lot of times when you do that on TV, it kind of looks, like the TV version.
There's a
of
moment
that.
where the budget gives out.
Right.
Yeah. And no, I felt like they really went for it. And I don't know, I think that narrative device and how they edit the show is really the hook for me.
I think you're right, because I'm not a biopic guy in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mixing up of the timelines really makes a difference. So you can see their relationship. You see it on the rocks, and you see it at its best, and you see they get mixed together.
Yeah. If I wanted to read straight through the Wikipedia and check all the dates, I could do that, like you said.
Yeah.
If you're going to have this ability for the narrative device, like do something with it to connect themes for me. Like show me how his meanness develops with his ego, but also corresponds to him recreating patterns from his youth.
Right.
And you can do that by jumping in time and having
Or
hallucinations.
the best one is you start by showing all the shitty stuff he does, and then later you show, he actually did all this really good shit in the middle too.
Yeah.
And then now we feel bad because we're like, he was just, beating his wife. I mean, who am I to judge?
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to talk Game of Thrones.
Oh, have we gotten to that point?
Yep. This is your spoiler warning. If you have not seen episode 3 The Long Night, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, Long Night, which I think is also the name of the prequel series that's in development.
I think that's right.
The Long Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen that, skip to the end. This is the last episode. This last show we're going to talk about this week.
Well, I feel like by not posting an episode earlier in the week, we kind of spoiled our reaction, which I don't know your reaction yet. We haven't talked about it much, but let's just say the first 2 episodes, I couldn't wait to get in this studio.
Yeah.
I was like, let's go right now.
Yeah.
And I wasn't necessarily feeling that way after this episode.
Really?
Yeah.
So I really liked this episode, but I agree with everybody who said it was too dark.
Mm-hmm.
And also, for an episode that was built up so much, it's like this is going to be bigger than Helm's Deep. It's going to be this big giant thing. A lot of the action is not that great. Like the actual fight itself, there's moments, but like it was not. They weren't ratcheting tension. Mm-hmm. I never felt like, oh, everyone's going to die. Like I felt that last week, and this week I was like, well, when's something going to happen?
Well, I feel with all of their big battles, there is some type of a big achievement within that battle. Mm-hmm. And with this, there was one thing that was really cool, which how they did those aerial dragon scenes, the real wide shots.
Yeah.
Where it's like almost looked like, Hieronymus Bosch paintings. Or not Hieronymus Bosch, but like just like Gothic paintings almost. And it was kind of neat. Like that worked for me. Mm-hmm. But then everything else, it's not so much – I can't really complain about any decision they made except for the fact that they decided to just go with something so different than what they've done with the rest of the show this late in the game.
I think my biggest issue is I would have liked to have had a better sense of the geography of the battle. Mm-hmm. It feels disconnected from itself. That said, I thought the spot moments were really good. The Red Woman showing up and lighting up all the swords, and the swords just disappearing into the night, like that was a great holy shit moment.
Oh yeah.
When the undead come in for the first time, and it's like a wave of bodies. Mm-hmm. That first time we see them, when it basically looks like an actual wave of bodies coming in, that is the thing I haven't seen outside of maybe the World War Z movie, which didn't do that much with it.
That's what I said when I saw that.
Yeah, but it was done better here. Like it was much scarier.
Oh yeah, and that kind of felt a little bit like last season when we saw them on the ice and the first couple bodies to like make the plunge and to test the ice, just to show the ruthlessness and they don't care. Something, my 2 big. Just with the pacing of the battle, because there's a lot of other stuff. And you talked about the great moments, which that's the thing. Some of the best moments of the show were in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
But I think when you look at it as an episode compared to other episodes, it's like, man, you could have made this a better episode.
I agree.
Or I actually think it could have been shorter.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but I think you're right.
Well, and it felt like at times they were kind of going for this horror movie vibe. Mm-hmm. Like they got these zombies and they're going to do that. But I felt like the balance was kind of off. For instance, the thing with the swords. That was an awesome, hell kick-ass moment. And then to, see the lights go out, it's like, oh, dang, kind of crazy. But I feel like there should have been another moment, like a rally moment, where you see, a Vista shot and, some of the swords light back up and you see, not all the Dothraki are taken out.
Right, yeah.
Even if they just get, beat back down again, it just kind of seemed like everything was dire until the very end, but nobody believed for a second that this wasn't going to end with them winning. We were all just kind of waiting. As far as the battle's concerned, we were like, how's it going to be resolved, and who are we going to lose in the conflict?
To be honest, I really did think that we might see most of the characters die and have to flee. And there was definitely points in this episode where I'm like, oh, maybe they are going to when they killed Mormont, not Jorah, but the Lyanna?
The little bear.
Yeah. Her death scene was one of the best I've seen.
Oh, that was awesome. Again, one of the best moments in this show. That was so badass.
Jorah and Dany having that moment I thought was really good. Mm-hmm. Theon getting his final moment.
Yeah. I was reading one of the theories, and it's total shit. I don't believe it. But somebody was like, what was Bran doing when he was all, eyes rolled in the back of his head in the street? Was he warged into Theon, saving his ass? Was he doing a Hodor?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of memes about how Bran was basically checked out of this whole battle.
Yeah.
And Bran doesn't do shit. Bran just sits there being bait. But I do have to say, for all that, a lot of this stuff was I was not super shocking. Of course, Jorah's sacrifice. When the giant comes in, we sort of knew where they were going with that. There's a lot of stuff that played off. They succeeded at getting my eye off the ball with Arya.
Yeah,
because they talked about that in the post credits thing when they talked about it, they said, yeah, what we did is we wanted to be fair. We want to play fair with the audience. We showed her running, but then we wanted to go talk to them, look at a bunch of the characters, may make you forget that she's out there. And that totally worked for me.
Oh, you're 100%.
Because I did not see Arya coming out of fucking nowhere. I did not see that.
Not only did it work for me in the sense that I didn't remember like she was still in play.
Yeah.
But like when she ran off screen, it was jarring. And it was like, wait, where'd she go?
Yeah.
But like they had so much stuff to kind of keep us interested, and we wanted to see other things get resolved.
Yeah.
You didn't, not until the very end.
So whatever other feelings this episode had, that moment was one of my favorite Game of Thrones moments because I literally cheered. Like I can't compare it to anything other than spoilery things that I won't say about Avengers Endgame. And like it had that holy shit moment to me, and her getting to be the one to take him down was so good.
Well, and I love that. I also thought she had a badass scene with her new weapon.
Yeah.
Kind of taking White Walkers out until she got her head knocked into.
Yeah.
I got to see a little bit of like, it's not just infiltrate people and like big weapons people, but like the spy and the kind of nimble, fighter, like really had like their heyday in this battle.
Yeah.
And that really worked for me. Also, a lot of what they did with the dragons, like the scene where Drogon is just covered in White Walkers and they're clawing at him.
Yeah, man, that was rough.
Yeah, that was gorgeous. I enjoyed that even more than kind of the World War Z-ish, we're going to pile up over this fire bit. But no, I thought that was used really well. But all in all, I kept, like biting my fingernails and like it felt a little bit like tension for tension's sake.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. There was enough good stuff in here that I was pretty happy with how the whole thing went down, and I like that they didn't just massacre everybody, which is kind of what I thought they might be doing.
Yeah,
and also the nice thing is, I did not expect the Night King to go in this episode. Like, I really didn't think that was going to be the end of him.
Yeah, and that actually scares me a little bit.
Really?
Because, I was prepared for – I really thought that – so much so that I'm like, I don't even want to tell you my idea because I'm going to spoil it for you. You know, I figured it out. But I thought for sure that the Night King wasn't even going to be there.
Yeah, me too.
And the reveal would be that King's Landing had already fallen.
That's what I thought too. And now I think the last 3 episodes are going to be very Game of Thrones. It's going to be who sits on the Iron Throne. That's going to be the big – I really thought – that the defeat of the Night King was going to be the big arc of the story, and it turns out no, it's important. But now that he's done, now they can go right back into all the courtly intrigues and stuff that they kept us going for so many seasons. So I'm all about that. I'm curious to see. I know they've got at least one more big battle episode coming.
Well, I'm wondering if let's just say I don't want this to happen. Even if it happens, I won't even admit that it happened until like far in retrospective. But let's just say they fuck it up. They do not stick the ending. And it's just like fan service, cheesy, just doesn't, they just ride up and they're like, and they stab somebody and it's over. All right. But then the books come out.
Yeah.
And they're like bad, like shit that you couldn't put on TV, like more incest, like more like crazy this, like, and it's like this awesome ending. I'd be satisfied with that.
I think you need to get okay with the idea that he is never going to finish those books.
Yeah, you are likely to have Brandon Sanderson finish those books. After Martin dies.
Yeah, that might happen.
Wheel of Time style.
No, he's just waiting for this show to be done so he can get that mad money.
Nope.
Also, I want to invite you to go on the internet and know that you can always live in a world where this ending is terrible. And they did not stick the landing, and it's just awful. In fact, I'm sure you can find a review of the series finale out now where they already know how terrible it is going to be.
Yep.
So that's the beauty of the internet. You can always live in a glass half full of piss. I am eager to hear what song they're going to pick for the final Game of Thrones. Just, there's a lot of fan theories about like when in the episode they're going to start the music playing and how long the song will be, so who's going to get to sit down in the throne chair. It's a game of musical thrones.
That's musical chairs. That's a different thing. Yeah.
I was going for Turkey in the Straw. I've got it in the company.
Yeah. No.
I would love for that to happen on the show.
After all of the violence and dragons and shit.
It was just a game of musical chairs.
It just came down to like someone opening an old music box and Turkey in the Straw plays. It's who's got the good knees.
Well, I'm hoping that because this is the first battle that all the talk, off season about how this is going to be the best thing ever. I hope they weren't really talking about this one. I mean, yeah, no, it was just really dark.
You were really let down, huh?
I don't know. I'll tell you this. I was riding high off those first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I mean, they ended and it's just like, yes, I can't wait to listen to people on the internet talk about this. Like, that's all I
Never
could think.
felt like that in my...
Yeah. No. I was like, yes, let's rehash this. Top 10 list. Let's go. But no, I got done with this one and part of me was just like, okay, I can breathe again. Like, thankfully, that kind of ended how it did. Because that was an insanely hopeless situation.
Yeah.
But again, like one of the moments that should have been one of the most badass moments of the show when the Night King raises all of those Dothraki and Unsullied.
Yeah.
And Jon Snow has his oh shit moment.
Yeah.
How am I going to get out? Oh, luckily I'm the hero of the story. I'm going to get a couple more episodes. The thing is, that would have been badass if it wasn't way cooler in, what was it, Helm's Deep?
Hardhome.
Or Hardhome, yeah. When they had all of the wildlings, and something about the character design, and they were all in white, and you could see them as they got up, and those blue eyes glowed. That's another thing. I didn't really feel like we got that scene where we saw all the blue eyes glowing, kind of like World's End.
Yeah.
No, they really just wanted it to feel almost like a John Carpenter movie or something. Like we're hiding in a closet, and
yeah, I think that was deliberate. I think we're definitely doing the overwhelming scary force, like you didn't know what was out there, you couldn't see it. They brought this polar vortex with them and everything, so you couldn't see around. And
yeah,
I think that was and whether or not that was a good choice, I don't know. I think that was they probably went a little too far with it.
Hey, I gotta say this: if I was disappointed or didn't like it, it was still way better than John from Cincinnati. They had a lot of good people on that John from Cincinnati too.
When you were talking about earlier, great shows ending and then splitting up and let's see what they do next. That was the first one that popped in mind. Was like, yeah, when Deadwood split up and most of the cast and the writers all went and did John from Cincinnati, which I still enjoyed, but I am me and 4 people dug that show. Like it is not the widespread adoration of Deadwood.
I don't think I've watched so much TV of something I did not like.
I liked it for quite a while, and then I hated it by the end. That's how I felt about John from Cincinnati.
I think by the time they were in the hotel room with her trying to cut the documentary together, I was like,
You know what this is reminding me of? When you guys were talking about Crazy Ex-Girlfriend earlier, I was kind of thinking of Wilfred. Because that was my mental health show. But again, it got to the last season and then just totally jacked it. Had the worst.
I didn't follow it all the way through. Yeah,
neither did I.
Yeah, I probably fizzled out before then. But the final season. Did you guys ever watch Erie, Indiana?
Yeah.
Okay, that show got canceled, and legitimately, you can tell the moment it got canceled, because they literally do an episode where he goes behind the scenes of the show. It's total BS. That's what that felt like towards the end of that show. Was that they knew they weren't doing anymore, and it was just fuck.
Did you ever see the Parallel Universe Erie spinoff? There's a second Erie, Indiana show that's in the parallel world, in a parallel world.
What?
Yeah, to Erie.
Wait, they made this?
Yes,
I remember that actually. Yeah,
is this a fan thing or a Fox?
No, it is a legit show. I can't remember what Crackle, Tubi TV type thing it's on.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
I'll find it. And
I just found they made a live action remake of Reboot. Show.
Fanny's kids are super into it. I'm just standing back and I'm like, what the shit?
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us this week. Thank you guys for listening. You can, if you would like to contribute to the TV Dudes, you can go to patreon.com/TV Dudes and throw us a buck an episode, and we will use it to bring you even better content and exclusive episodes for patrons. Like this week, you might be listening to us talk about Avengers Endgame, perhaps.
Yes.
And
us and the rest of the world.
And next week, when Grant's back, we'll probably talk about Avengers Endgame.
It'd be really funny if the week after that we're like, I've been thinking about it.
And hear me out.
Yeah. Now that we've seen the new Spider-Man trailer, I think this means something different now.
And as always, we are part of the Electric Sweater Network.
Electric Sweater.
And you can find a bunch of great TV content over there, including the Televixens, her show that is
FemTV.
Thank you. I was like, it's not Televixen. That's the other thing. The FemTV, where she interviews a variety of women in TV.
Yep.
And you can listen to the This Is Us podcast. You can listen to all 2 seasons of the Star Trek Discovery podcast.
Yep, you can call in now and bother them.
You can call in and bother them, which you absolutely should do. Yeah, so go check that out. And until next week,
TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Electric Sweater Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/tvdudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter @TV Dudes. All the music for our show is by our friend and original TV dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and electricsweater.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.